given the narrative that is coming out, especially by those who are in office, because the greater responsibility lies with them. They're in possession of the instruments of power. But speaking of David Ndii, I see Gadhara here tweeted, if JOK is too broke to pay salaries, we should start by freezing all payments and benefits to those at the very top, including anyone with Honorable or HE, His Excellency, in front of their name, as well as all senior government officials. Then sit back and watch how quickly they resolve the crisis. And I see David Ndii says, or throw in the towel. I am reading some sarcasm in there. Annet, does it inspire confidence? What this political grandstanding has been aptly described by Wanja?
So I think what I would make of the same is that what we have seen, is especially the past 6 months of the making of the Kenya Kwanza regime, is the infiltration of politicians in all sectors of our economy. And this raises a concern because, again, we would always need the technocrats to be able to support government in terms of making critical economic decisions. So this has been left to politicians. And what are we seeing? We are seeing our country sinking, you know. Most of the times, again, talking of the same, in the current context, the legal, the constitution, the political context that we are in, largely what we normally see is that there's always incongruence of the same with the competitive politics. At the end of the day, we would see that what would take the day would be the advancing of those political interests. And the result of the same is the lack of transparency, lack of equity, you know, lack of accountability. And coming back to the question, for example, and I think it's basically to send us back to the issue of our constitution and how the same is really right now being affected. I think in the recent past, what we have been seeing, when you talk about cost of production, for example, we are talking about electricity. We would expect that at this particular point in time, we see austerity measures by the government to be able to cushion Kenyans. But that is actually missing. It's not on the table. There's no space for such a conversation. And we continue to see that the action that is being taken by the government at the end of the day does not inspire hope to the ordinary Kenyan, because if those who depend on electricity, for example, are slapped with this high cost of electricity, what does it make? We saw recently that those in business have and those who are using electricity have opted to use gas, and even maybe in their businesses do not use electricity because of the cost. You know, that the cost implication of the same. There's now, recently we saw the CS for agriculture just informing us that he's gotten land, is it in Zambia, to be able to grow maize there. And so in the next 4 months, we are going to be buying unga at 80 shillings. And to any Kenya, any layman, you know, that is really, really concerning. We have a lot of land here. We have farmers here. When you tell them you're going to give jobs to people in Zambia, instead of learning from that and grow maize there, for me, I still see them as promises that will not be met. I still see that as excuses that are unlikely to be met. We saw the GMO, for example, and this just happened immediately after the new government came into being. We saw the introduction of GMO, where most Kenyans did not understand what does this mean. And to many Kenyans, the thinking is when you talk about GMO, you want to kill us with these this new approach. We would want to go organic and all that. You know, there was no any conversation, and it's 6 months down the line. What is the outcome of the same? I know the same has been contested in courts for lack of public participation, but it continues to happen. And talking about the date, and I know during the campaigns, this was one of the agendas for election, and the promise was we are going to reduce our public date. We are going to use we're going to put our monies, our revenues into good use, so that again we do not continue to wallow in public debt. That is not happening. So what I'm trying to say is that at this particular point in time, every Kenyan would appreciate if government took austerity measures to be able to cushion them in all manner of ways. But we continue to see the happenings which at the end of the day can only be interpreted as no goodwill by the government to be able to address the agenda of Kenyans. And at this particular point, again, I would say it's safe to say that Kenyans were duped into electing this government into place, because and I used to make a joke with colleagues that if at all I had not lived in this country, and somebody comes at that particular point in time and tells me they are going to take the bottom-up approach, the citizens will take the center stage, I would quickly jump to be able to put those people in power, you know. But again, having lived in this country and the history and all that, I think it was quite questionable. And many unsuspecting Kenyans, in my view, were duped because we were given timelines, both short-term, the medium term and the long term, that we expected to see results. We expected to start seeing actualization of the promises that were given during the campaigns, but that is not happening. On the contrary, what we are seeing is the creation of offices of the spouses of the top leadership, and I know even as things are going, we are going to be seeing even the offices of the governor spouses at this particular point in time, because there's nothing right now surprising us as Kenyans. You know, we've gotten to a point where we are numb by every happenings in the government at this particular time. But then we should be worried. I think we are at a point where, as citizens, it's time to take back our country. Honestly, it's time to take back our country. It's time for us to exercise our sovereign power. And you see, most of the time, sovereign power has been reduced to public participation, where we have a formality, a tick-a-box process, so that people are not taken to court. And I'm certain with the bipartisan approach, if it's to be left to Parliament alone, a tick-a-box process is likely to happen in the form of public participation. We'll be called to send our memorandums, will be called to go there and present our views, but that will end at that, because again, at the end of the day, the decision will always be determined by whoever is seated on the table, you know. So I'm really concerned, and especially when we talk about sovereignty of the people, that is lacking in this nation. It's really quite lacking. There's no space and room for that. Kenyans have been duped, and I'm also concerned because what we have seen is that all those people that we rejected on the ballot have found their way into government. What does that mean? You know, we see a ballooned wage bill. We have seen just 50 CAS members being approved. I know that there's a court case in that regard, but again, what does that mean? It means that the wage bill will balloon, yeah? And how is that supposed to cushion Kenyan? How is that supposed to cushion Kenyan, considering the hard economic times that we are in? We are not able to meet our revenue targets, yet we continue to create these offices that are unconstitutional, to be able to just reward cronies, to be able to reward people that voted the government in. At the same time, we have seen statements out there, us being told that Kenya is a company. Surely, at this particular point in time, we have come a long way as a nation. We do not expect such utterances. They do not inspire any hope in Kenya. And what that tells us, that really as Kenyans, we do not have space. That is against the Constitution. And as I keep on talking about Article 1 of the Constitution being dealt a blow, and perhaps it's time that we begin unpacking what the sovereignty of the people mean. So really we are living in hard times, economically, politically, and even socially, that would require all interested stakeholders to be able to take part. This is the time to be able to take and grab this opportunity to be able to make it right as a nation.